Okay, I'll watch the page. Here we are. I see us. Okay, so it says watch live video. So I just click that and I can watch.
I believe.
And then is there an easy place? I'm looking up to the side for people who are starting to show up if they are, is trying to figure out where I can see our chat.
So it should be underneath.
Under comment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So should I add a comment? We're here. Please feel free to let us know who you are, or should we wait a bit until we see people showing up?
No, you can go ahead. It's 12:55. It looks like we have 4 people who have logged on right now. So we can certainly go ahead and start chatting with those people.
Okay, let's do that. I feel like I should not be on the screen right now because I'm trying to comment and I think I stopped mid-sentence. So sorry, everybody. We're just working through the technology.
I have to step off for 1 second. I have a dog problem. 1 second.
Okay, while Lori's doing that, I'm just going to start talking a little bit. My name is Cheryl Jaffer, and I will be one of the facilitators today. And we are going to be working through some of the technology issues as we go through this process today. But if you would like to sign on, tell us who you are and if you're involved with a rescue, which rescue that is, or what brought you to our presentation, whether that's in a volunteer capacity with a rescue group or with your own personal dog, whatever the case may be, or in a dog that you've recently adopted. We would love to hear from you and check in and know that you're here with us for the next hour. We'll be getting started at about 1:00 p.m. and we expect that the presentation portion of our conversation will really be mostly completed within 45 minutes, and we'll leave some time at the end to answer questions. So if you have questions that you would like to ask, by all means, put those in the chat now as you're working or as you're listening to us, and we'll go ahead and have Randy will be monitoring our chat, correct, Lori?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I was just giving some instruction, but I bet you were listening.
I was listening and also dealing with a rambunctious young hound dog. So
my dogs are being wonderful right now. Let's put that out there for the universe.
Yeah.
They will stay wonderful. Now, I don't know how to see who's here. Is there a way or not?
I think if you are on the Facebook page, you can click on that eye up above and see who has actually logged on.
We have 2 people logged on, correct?
I am not on the page right now. Give me 1 second.
Oh, I'm one of the 2 people.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll stop looking off to the side. I'm looking off to the side so that you can see.
My guess is the people who are logged on are you, me, and Randy right now, because most people probably will join at 1 or slightly after, because that's pretty typical.
Sue's here. Hi, Sue. Sue's got a foster dog, Aria. I've actually worked with her. Glad to see you here. And, oh, there's 18 people here. Thank you, Samantha. I am obviously technologically challenged. So, yeah, Samantha says there's 18 people here, and we are at 12:58. So,
fantastic.
That's really helpful. It's interesting talking without having your audience in front of you.
It's very strange. You would think after a year of this we would know and be prepared, but it's still very strange to be looking at a screen and only seeing Cheryl and not seeing who's in the room, saying hello and all of those fun things. So I don't know if I'll ever get used to that.
And Sam is here. Sam actually took my bonding and confidence building class. Her foster dog, Nellie, is really fearful. So she's also here. And I'm just going to call people out while we're waiting, if that's okay with you.
Oh, that's totally fine.
I love this. Sue Roycraft is going to be adopting a dog soon. Wonderful place to start, and is going back to work within the next few months. So this will be perfect. With this.
It's funny because I can't even find it on the Spencer Group page, which makes me a little bit concerned.
Did anybody have any trouble finding this?
Or is it just me who's totally tech challenged?
Well,
my joke to my joke to every client, really, and Cheryl, I think you've heard this already today, is if dogs were digital, I would not have a job because
say that.
I am really not tech savvy. So I hope there's no issues today, but hopefully we will see.
Well, luckily we're going to be recording it and putting it on our YouTube page, and then hopefully within the next 12 hours get that on our website as well. So if people have any problems accessing it, they can always refer to it later that way too, right?
For sure, yes.
Okay. Janie Shadrack is here. Hi, Janie.
Hi, Janie. That's a name I know.
And Jen Fieldman did not have trouble accessing it. Julie,
so I'm the only one who's having issues.
I think so, yes. And the messages are coming in fast. So I'm Liz Schmidt. One question I have is if you can retrain your dog to go into a crate after years of not using a crate. Great question, Liz. I actually have a video I created about that once upon a time, and I know Randy's going to be monitoring our questions so he can compile these and ask them at the end, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So we will be answering questions at the end if you guys just throw them into the chat. Because we do have limited time, so throw them into the comments section. Those are being monitored by someone, and then we will answer questions at the end. The other thing that would be great is if you can write, if you are with a rescue, what group you're involved in, and how Spencer Group can do more things like this to help you. You know, what topics are you interested in? What things do you need? You know, and how we can really benefit, because that's our goal, is to benefit as many dogs in foster and rescue and in pet homes as we possibly can. So sorry, that was my little plug.
I'm so glad you did that. I think if you're ready to go ahead and start turning on the technology, I'm just going to greet a few more people before we get started. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is start the recording, and I'll go ahead and share my screen with the presentation, and I will stop sharing my video. So anybody who's looking for my face, you won't see my face anymore. That's just to save bandwidth. But I wish I was in a room in front of all of you and having a face-to-face event, because that would be way more fun.
And by the way, Lori, I'm not sure how to turn off my camera, but I will. Lorna Reichel said hello to us. And
hi, Lorna.
Safe Hands and Tilly. Hello, Heather. Liz Schmidt. Yola Robinson with Reggie. Yeah, I think, lots of people are checking in, telling us who they are. So I will stop talking so that that's not the first thing people hear. Thank you.
All right, so I am starting the recording. The recording is on. My video is now gone. Can you still hear me, Cheryl?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, and I hope everybody out there in Facebook land can hear us as well. I'm going to start sharing my screen at this point so you guys can see the presentation. And then I would say we wait until 1:05 just for stragglers, because I know that would normally be me. And then we'll go ahead and get started if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm about to go into present mode here. And we should be ready. Let me get back. Sorry, nobody gets seasick. Right, so we're back on the title slide.
Okay, and we're just going to wait until 1:05. And
yep.
Well, you do that.
So if you can see people's chat, feel free to keep talking. I unfortunately can only see the presentation, so I can't see what anyone is posting out there, which makes me sad.
Mostly people are just introducing themselves and saying who they are and which rescues they're with and who their dogs are. So it's, a place that I hope you can engage throughout our conversation today, whether or not we're monitoring it. I would love to have you also talking to each other if that feels like a good way for you to help adapt or absorb some of this material that we'll be covering today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Cheryl and I value the most is cooperation and collaboration between vets, between trainers, between rescue groups. And so, if you guys are out there and can help each other out, that is fantastic. And we, of course, will be here to answer questions and help out after the presentation as well.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. And it looks like we have representatives of trainers and veterinarians and adopters and fosters and volunteers all in this group already. So I think that the audience is matching our values really well.
Fantastic. We love cooperative relationships.
And we have a new rescue represented right now with Saveable, so welcome.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. All right, so my time says 1:05. So Cheryl, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started. The title of today's presentation is Alone Again, Preparing Your Pups for Return to Work. Sorry, Preparing Pups for Your Return to Work. And this presentation is being brought to you by SpencerGroup. Who we are, I'm going to go ahead and let Cheryl take this slide. My name is Lori Rockwell. I'm a veterinarian with a strong interest in behavior. I am located in Wisconsin, and I'm going to let Cheryl introduce you to SpencerGroup and to herself. So Cheryl, if you want to go ahead.
Absolutely. SpencerGroup was created in 2017 with the intent of supporting the work that rescue groups do, specifically helping them find permanent loving homes for dogs in rescue. We saw a need to provide free training support to rescue groups so that dogs that might be experiencing some challenges in their foster homes could get access to free training through certified trainers who use positive reinforcement training methods. And we usually offer dogs as many as 6 or 7 training sessions with the same trainer and a transfer session in their adoptive home. In addition to that, we've added community outreach. So this program today is an example of that, where we're trying to help support rescue groups by providing content that will be helpful to them and to their adopters. My name is Cheryl Jaffer, and I am a dog trainer and have been involved with SpencerGroup since it began. And I also want to take a second to thank Rough Start Rescue. They called us and said there was a need for this kind of content and asked if we would create some, and that is the reason we're here today. So thank you, Rough Start Rescue, for asking us to create this presentation, and we hope it will be useful to you and your adopters, as well as to all of the rescue groups who are here.
And I think that also opens a door for me just to give a little plug to say, if any of you rescue groups do have content that you would like or presentations that you would like, please reach out to us. We are happy to do this, and support all of the work you're doing, support your fosters, support your adopted dogs, and, your volunteers in any way that we can. So this is sort of an outline of what we're going to be discussing today. Part 1, the planning section, is going to be handled by me, and Part 2, the practice section, is going to be handled by Cheryl. Our plan is to hopefully get through our talking portion in 30 minutes, but I would plan for 45, and then we will have time to answer questions at the end. I think we're scheduled to be done at 2 o'clock. If things are, really engaging, I'm sure Cheryl and I both have a little bit of extra time that we can stay and answer some questions, or we can answer those questions offline, at a different time. Normally, this is when I would ask the audience if they have any questions, but I can't do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody is with us and we can start moving through some of this. So part 1 is really the planning section. And I think as a veterinarian, I tend to always jump to treatment before planning, which is why I wanted to do this section. Cheryl is always great at reminding me to think about potential challenges that might come up in my training plan and be prepared for those with my dogs or with my pets so that I can address those needs as they're arriving or as they're arising and not be completely surprised by what's happening. So our goal with this section really is to introduce you to some of your potential challenges and how to create a safe space for your pets where they'll feel really comfortable being when you're not home. So the first piece we really need to think about is the timeline. How long is it before you're going to return to work? Do you have a week? Do you have a month? Do you have 3 months or more? And maybe some of us don't know, but the sooner you start preparing, the easier it really will be for your pets to accept that you're not going to be home all the time and get used to being alone again. The next section we want to talk about is some of the challenges. So as we all know, change is hard, and anytime we can break change into smaller steps, it makes those transitions easier. I know for me, if I'm trying to change a habit, if I can say, okay, I'm going to drink more water, and I can start by just setting a glass of water on my nightstand so that I drink that first thing in the morning, that's a lot easier than just saying to myself, no, you must drink 64 ounces of water every day. You know, the smaller you can make these steps for your pets and for yourself, the easier things will be. So what we want to help you do is identify those potential challenges, write them down as they're coming to you through this presentation, because your challenges with your pets might be different than the challenges we've come up with, and then really think about and create that plan that is tailored to your individual pet to help them overcome those challenges and to make this a safe and easy transition for them. So the first challenge is the schedule and routine change. So we've all developed a current routine because we've been in this pandemic environment with most of us working from home for the past year. And so that probably looks a lot different than what your future routine will look like. I know for me, I don't do makeup as much as I would if I was going into the office. I don't have the commute or the drive time. And so my walks with my dogs have become later in the day. I'm able to take them for walks at lunch because I'm home. And so those are all the things you want to start thinking about and really trying to come up with solutions for how you will adjust your routine. And I know Cheryl's going to talk more about that in the practice section. The next challenge really is safety. So safety is going to be different depending on how many pets you have, the age of the pets in your home, and the different things that you have around the home. Obviously, when we are at home with our dogs, we can kind of keep an eye on them. And if you all joined the presentation early, you saw me just mute myself on the screen and go help one of my dogs to find something else to do because he was having a little challenge of chewing on something that he found, you know, laying around the house. Well, if we're not home, we can't intervene. So creating an environment where you know that your dog is going to be safe when you're not home is really important. And so those challenges with puppies are obviously going to be different because puppies are getting into everything and putting their mouths on everything. And so if you have a puppy, a crate might be a better option if they've gotten comfortable in that crate, but you also need to be mindful of their physical needs, and we will be addressing that as well. Adult dogs, many of our adult dogs do okay being out and about in the house, but you need to think about, are there things that they could get into? Are there things that, you know, might be problematic? Are there windows that are going to be barking out? Are there passersby, you know, that are going to be bothersome for them? And so really thinking about where is that safe space that you can put them into is going to be a good thing to start planning for. And then we have our senior pet. So this is actually my dog, Sophie. She's 10 and a half, and she has some mobility issues. And those mobility issues weren't present before the pandemic. So now when I'm thinking about going back into the office, where she used to be able to be free in a room and have access to a bed and things she could jump up on, those aren't as much of an option for her anymore because jumping up, she could fall and hurt herself. And so we're actually looking into ways to use exercise pens and things so that she can be safe and have non-slip flooring and not be falling down and struggling while I'm not here. Another safety challenge is when you have multiple pets. So a lot of us haven't had to think about this because if we heard the cat hiss or we heard the dog bark, we could get up and go into the other room and check on them and separate them as needed. But when you're not home, making sure that there is a safe space for each of those animals and that they're not stuck together in a small confined area. I know at my house I have 5 dogs, and if I'm going to leave enrichment toys out for those dogs, I really can't leave those dogs together because there's a potential for conflict or a fight to arise because, you know, Sophie might want Felix's bone or vice versa. And so these are things we need to think about in creating spaces that are safe to house multiple pets and to make sure that they have the appropriate enrichment present. Next piece is really how will you be addressing the physical needs of your pet. So many of us, when we're going into work, we have an 8-hour workday. And if you've got a puppy, that puppy probably can't go 8 hours without going potty. I know even my adult dogs don't really enjoy being left for more than 5 to 6 hours. We also need to think about how are they going to get appropriate exercise? Do we have time to walk them? Do we have time to engage with them before work? Is that going to be an after work thing, or should we consider hiring a dog walker? We want to think about their comfort. Do they have comfortable bedding and non-slip flooring if they need that? And also what mental activities we can lead them so they're not just sitting there bored all day waiting for you to come home, and then when you're tired, you've got hours of engagement that you have to do to try and fulfill or empty out that energy tank. We want to think about medical needs. So, you know I already mentioned Sophie. She's had to start taking some medication during this pandemic, and we've been giving that medication to her 3 times a day. Well, there's going to have to be an adjustment in that schedule for me to still be able to meet that need. And so I might have to have somebody come in the middle of the day and give her medication. I want to make sure that she has appropriate access to water. I want to make sure that she's got non-slip surfaces so that she's not going to hurt herself when I'm not home. Last piece I'm going to talk about is really creating a comfortable retreat for your dog, because this is a big adjustment for them. It's also a big adjustment for you. These dogs have gotten used to, and cats, have gotten used to being with us pretty much every day, all day. If you're like me, the dogs have been hanging out in your office, or you've moved your office into your bedroom so they can be close to you, and now I'm suddenly not going to be available. And so trying to think about where will that location be? Can I have them be in the same room that they've gotten accustomed to being in, and can I turn that space into a safe space for them and start practicing some departures so that they can get comfortable with that? When we think about a retreat for our dogs, we want to make sure that it's nice and cozy. So what makes a cozy retreat? Well, it's really dog dependent. What does each dog like? You know, one dog may prefer a crib mattress or a cooling bed. Another dog might prefer some comfortable blankets or access to your bed. We want to make sure in that cozy space that we have some safe toys for them so that they have something to do if they are, you know, bored or needing to interact with something. When we think about a retreat, we want to think about what is our dog going to be able to see from this area, and are those sights that they will enjoy, or are those potentially things that might be scary or frustrating or bothersome? So we want to make sure that there's decent lighting so that they can see the things that they need to in the space, and we want to block out any things that might be scary or bothersome for them. And we can use things like window film, which is available at most of your home improvement stores or online. There's a great site called Wallpaper for Windows if you want fancy window film. You can also hang plants or plant things outside in front of the window to try and mask what the dogs are seeing, so they're not spending the whole day barking out the window, getting stressed at everyone who's now walking past. I also want to think about sounds. So what is the dog hearing, and are those environmental sounds stressful or bothersome? You know, things like sirens and cars honking and buses and loud noises, other dogs barking, things like that that might be really distressing. If instead of having the house be quiet when you're gone, you use things like a white noise machine or through a dog's ear music or even a box fan or sometimes multiple of these items, you're going to mask out those environmental noises and make things easier for your dog so that they can relax and be comfortable. We also want to think about smells. So there are smells available that can help dogs relax. The ones that have been proven scientifically are Adaptil. It's also called Comfort Zone or DAP. In some markets, it's all the same product. And this is a pheromone. So it's the same smell that dogs smell when they're nursing from their mothers. Having some dried lavender around. I don't really like essential oils or the plugins because I think the smell is overwhelming for some dogs. It's sort of like sitting next to somebody who's wearing too much perfume. And so I like to use, a little bit of dried lavender or a little bit of dried chamomile from a tea packet, and I kind of will rub that into a snuffle mat and then have my dogs smell that as they're eating. I also will often spray that Adaptil on that snuffle mat to try and get those scents into their system so that they can be as comfortable as possible and that those things can help them relax. We do want to mention crating. So there are some dogs that are very comfortable with their crate. They've either been trained to go in and relax or they're just very comfortable being confined in that space. And if that's okay with your dog, then it's fine to leave your dog in the crate when you do go back to work. But you're going to want to reintroduce it. So if your dog hasn't been crated in a year, just starting to crate them suddenly when you're gone for 8 hours is going to be too much for them. So you're going to want to slowly reintroduce that. Typically, we don't want a dog to be in a crate longer than 4 or 5 hours. And so if you are going to be gone for an 8-hour day, thinking about a dog walker or something like that that can come and safely let them out to eliminate is important. There are situations where crates really don't work well. So dogs that have not been conditioned to a crate, dogs that have confinement anxiety, are digging in the crate, are chewing on the crate bars, there definitely is a risk to those dogs. They can break teeth, they can injure themselves, and this is a high stress situation. So although they're not getting into things that could be dangerous for them, you are definitely causing them some emotional distress by forcing them to be in a crate for an extended period of time if it's not a place they're comfortable. And so if you want to use a crate, it's really important that you take the time to teach your dog about being crated and to make sure that they're comfortable in that space before you go ahead and start using it. So we're going to transition over into section 2. Again, if you do have any questions about planning or your specific situation, please go ahead and enter those into the comments section on Facebook, and we will address those at the end of our talk. So Cheryl, I'm going to go ahead and transfer things over to you. Are you still with us?
I'm still with you, and you will continue to advance the slides, correct?
Yes, just let me know when you want me to go forward.
Okay, I will. But before I do that, I did want to ask you a couple of quick questions as follow-up from your presentation.
Absolutely.
On the one side, you had the picture of the puppy and you were talking about challenges. And I was wondering if you could give a guideline as far as how many hours puppies can be left alone based on age.
So typically with puppies, they're going to have to eliminate about, depending on age, usually what we have is, so if you have an 8-week-old puppy, they're 2 months, most of the time during the day, they might be able to go 2.5 or 3 hours without eliminating. So if you do have a puppy that you're leaving, you are going to need somebody to come in and let them out. So if you think about the number of months they are in age and add an hour to that up till about 6 months of age, that's about how long they can go without eliminating. I'm not going to say that they can't or that they will. Typically, if I have to leave a puppy more than an hour, I try to create a long-term confinement area, which is sort of like an exercise pen that has their crate or their comfortable safe space so they have access, some toys in there. And I also give them some pee pads so they have a space to eliminate, because it's really not fair to ask them to hold it for an extended period of time when you're not there.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question happened when you were talking about the crating. When you have multiple dogs that may not get along, is it okay? How should you think about spacing their crates to reduce stress?
So we have 5 dogs at our house, so this is a never-ending challenge. The dogs typically are most comfortable if their crate is a fair distance, at least 5 to 10 feet away, and that there's some sort of physical barrier between them that they can't necessarily see the other dog or be staring at the other dog all day. So obviously, in our house, we don't have enough bedrooms to give each dog a bedroom. And so our dogs do stay in crates when we're gone. They've all been trained to do that. They're very comfortable with that. But oftentimes we set the crates up so that the dogs are facing away from each other, or they're back to back, and then we put blankets over or cardboard in between or plywood in between, even if it's one of the plastic crates that just has the small holes. Because if the dogs happen to get bored, and my dogs always have lots to do, so I hope that's not the case, but if they do happen to get bored, I don't want them staring at the other dog or at the other animals and trying to make the other animals do something by intimidating them, because then it sets them up to have more problems when they're outside the crate. So we want to remove sources of conflict or competition when we're leaving multiple animals home together.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I thought
No
people in the
problem.
audience might have questions.
Yep.
All right, so now we'll go ahead with part 2. And again, I'm Cheryl, and we'll be covering 3 different topics in this second section, all of which will involve you doing some practice work with your dogs to help them adapt and be ready for your transition to work. We identified that as 3 areas: relax, enrich, and routine. So building on that idea of a space that's relaxing, how do we train the dog to go to that relaxing space? Or enrichment, what can we do to engage your dogs mentally and physically while you may not be as present as you have been? And finally, establishing a routine and preparation of your return to work. This quote from Kathy Sadeo, or this information from Kathy Sadeo, is a really good rule of thumb when you're deciding how to start training your dogs. I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they start a training plan, but it doesn't have to be a big complex thing. So Kathy Sadeo says 50 treats per day for a calm behavior. What that means is that you can take roughly a quarter cup of your dog's food, and when you notice your dog being calm throughout the day, you can simply drop treats towards your dog when they are exhibiting that calm behavior. If you have a dog that's a little bit smaller, you might need to modify that down from 50 treats to something that works for that smaller dog. Oftentimes, I'll actually use a scissors and cut pieces of kibble in thirds for my smallest dog, and you can get a lot out of probably even an eighth of a cup for a smaller dog. But having treats on hand so that you can be ready to capture your dogs when they exhibit calm behavior is step 1. The second step will be creating a positive, calm association with that space that you have identified for your dog to be kept in when you're gone to work. So the simplest way I can say that is the dog plus the station equals treats on station. But truthfully, I start a step behind that. When my dog looks at that space that I have identified for relaxing in, I will drop treats on it. When they approach it or sniff it, I will drop treats on it. Inevitably, what happens is the dog will start putting its paws on that relaxation station, and so I'll start dropping treats when it's on the station, when it sits on the station, and when it lies down on it. And again, to just reiterate, that relaxation station is the place where I want my dog to naturally relax for extended periods of time when I'm at work. So in this case, it would be a bed, whether that's a kennel or a room or a contained area in your kitchen, that place where your dog goes to lie down. To make this part of the training easy, I typically either carry a treat pouch with me, or I use glass or jars with screw-on lids near that space so that anytime that the dog gravitates towards that space, they're going to naturally start getting treats. And I like to remind people, because so many of you have dogs that have great settle behaviors, and that is wonderful. This isn't a cued settle behavior. This isn't go to your bed or go lie down. This is really your dog is feeling relaxed, and so they wander across the room and plop down on that bed or on that relaxation station. So when you look at this particular slide, the dog on the left is really relaxed. It almost is melting into the floor. Sometimes dogs will sleep with their legs straight out. They'll be on their sides. The dog on the right is being cued. It's supposed to stay on that spot, but it isn't relaxed. So we're looking for a behavior that your dog offers automatically without you engaging with them verbally or looking at them. And when they do it, good things happen. For enrichment, we just like to think about ways of creating an environment that helps release dopamine, which makes dogs feel good. And so whenever I leave my house, I think about what can I do to make this environment at least a little bit interesting every day and maybe a little bit different from day to day. And so this series of slides is going to be looking at what we can do to make that happen. Some of the things I like to think about when considering enrichment are the senses of looking, I guess it's not truly senses, but looking, sniffing, and digging are three ways that we can build enrichment into the environment. Looking can be something like we see in this picture where the puppies are looking up at these stuffed animals hanging down. Now, those are also going to be tactile stimulation as well. So there's more going on than just the colors and the movement, but also the texture and the feel. Sniffing is something that you can use in your environment in a lot of different ways. Obviously, hiding treats throughout your house, putting things for your dogs to discover throughout the day. Lori, I want to quickly check in with you. Didn't you mention another way that dogs can get sniffing enrichment besides food? Or am I putting you on the spot?
So, I mean, no, it's fine. So you can do scent enrichment. It doesn't have to be food. So if for some reason you can't leave food for your dog, you can do things like choose different smells and spray those onto a bandana and hide those bandanas around the room, around the house, or hang them on the outside of the crate if the dog won't chew those and eat them. But that adds some different scents. So like I've used things like strawberry water or cucumber water. I've also picked up random items outside and I kind of rubbed them onto that bandana. So maybe I found a bird feather outside or some leaves outside, different things to kind of bring the outdoors in or bring some new scents into the space, so that the dogs have something interesting to smell. Because if we think about dogs, they really do see the world through their nose. And so the more things they have to smell, the better. I think that's probably what you were looking for, but
yes, very much. And I guess I want to go back to look for a second too, because a lot of our dogs love looking out the windows, and provided that's not stressful for your dogs, there's no reason you can't make the relaxation station near the windows. But again, that's if your dog is comfortable. Otherwise, you can just use dog TV as a way of creating some stimulation, or nature channels. Lori and I talked about digging. I'm gonna just talk about digging briefly, but you can keep it on the slide. Oh, that's fine. For those of you who want to do a little bit more of a dramatic engagement opportunity or enrichment opportunity, you can do containers with things buried inside of them for your dogs to find. A lot of times, all of those extra Amazon boxes that we all have probably piled up, you can put newspaper inside, you can put balls inside, you can put other containers inside of them. A lot of times I'll use egg cartons or envelopes or pieces of paper, so you can actually create digging spaces in your house, provided you're comfortable with your dogs tearing things up. I don't always recommend this for dogs that are currently in foster homes because their adoptive families may not be okay with it. So I'm cautious about who I recommend that to. And then we just wanted to come up with a list of other enrichment ideas that you might want to think about. So obviously choose that they can't ingest and potentially have trouble digesting. Puzzles, that can be, again, anything from those purchased puzzle toys that you buy to the type of box that I just described. I'm constantly looking around my house for ways that I can use household items as challenges for my dogs. In fact, one of my favorites is this old fruit bowl that I just put upside down so the dogs have to push it around to try to get underneath it, or colanders, a metal colander. Hunting courses, again, Lori, I would love to have you talk a little bit more about that because you brought this one up too, and I think you can talk about it a little bit better than I can.
So hunting courses are things that we commonly think about for cats, and that is, hiding food in different spaces around the house so that the cats can hunt. But I actually have started doing a lot of them with my dogs. I don't mind my dogs making a mess. When I'm not here, I usually see the bigger the mess, the more comfortable they were, as long as, it's not destructive around doorways or windows, indicating some sort of separation anxiety. So I will do things like hide their Kongs in paper bags or boxes and then stash them around the house so that the dog that has free access that day can go and rip those things apart and get access to that enrichment toy. It just adds an extra level. Now, I didn't start doing that in the very beginning because that would have been too difficult for the dog. But, as they got better at those food puzzle toys, hiding them just adds one more thing that they have to work through. So that's what I meant. And you could hide paper bags with toys in them, boxes with bones in them, your only limit with enrichment is your own creativity. So, get creative and come up with those things that you can do to make your dog's life interesting when you're not home.
Right. And also, there's Canine Enrichment on Facebook. For those of you who aren't with that group, they've got some wonderful ideas. And I think that this picture here again illustrates a great enrichment example for a young dog. That empty paper towel roll is enough. Clearly, the puppy's engaging with it. Clearly, the puppy's chewing on it, carrying it around. So we see that this puppy is engaged with that. But anything like that, so an engaging toy doesn't have to be an expensive thing that you bought, but it can be something that you found in your house that is safe for your dog. And because companionship is such an important part of our dogs' lives, just remembering that if you're going to be gone for more than 4 or 5 hours, it's really beneficial if you can have somebody check in on the dogs and give them a little bit of a break. Okay, we can go ahead to the next slide.
Sorry.
This slide, I think, has a lot of information on it, and I just really want to use it to generate ideas for you if you want to take a photo of it to just help jog your memories. When I look for creating a schedule, I first start thinking about what I currently have going on in my life. What time am I getting up? What does my dog's day look like? What pieces are vital to my dog at this time? And then I think about what is my schedule going to be like and how will that change? So if I'm currently waking up at 9 a.m. and I'm going to be waking up at 7 a.m., I have to find a way to shift my dog's schedules back by 2 hours. And I might begin by just getting up 5 minutes earlier every 3 days, depending on how soon I have to go back to work. So the more time that you can spread that transition out, the better. Other places where I think this is going to be important is, and that's fine to stay with this new slide, is identifying when is my dog currently relaxed during the day, when is my dog lying down, and how can I build that into the new routine? What time are we currently getting exercise? What is that going to look like in the new environment? And again, building it out so that it looks as similar to your new schedule as possible. So for me, I get up in the morning, let them out, feed my dogs, wait about 20 minutes, let them out again. Then I put them in their spaces and give them a little opportunity from a break for me and go upstairs because I know that that is going to mimic what my ultimate return to work time is going to look like. So I give them time essentially alone in the house during the part of the day when I would normally be gone. And we'll cover that in a little bit more depth in these upcoming slides. So 2 things that I like to think about are implementing this change really gradually and doing it according to a timeline. So rather than trying to do this all in 1 or 2 weeks, unless you have to, doing it a little bit at a time. You can go ahead to the next slide. First step is going to be, this is just a reminder. You can probably go through this slide too about remembering that if you're going to be gone longer than 4 or 5 hours, your dog may need to go outside. So starting with predictable departures, I begin with things inside my house, which will be putting my dog in their enrichment location by choice, ideally, and going and making a cup of coffee or taking a shower or making lunches. So an internal departure that isn't going to necessarily trigger your dog that you're leaving your house. Something small and brief and inside the house. And then we'll start going to a brief departure outside of the house. When I transition to this type of a departure, I actually want to do something that's going to be even briefer than what I was doing in the previous step. So it's something as small as going to the mailbox or bringing out the garbage. If I notice any signs of stress on my dog's part, I'm going to go back to the previous level. And filming your dogs while you do these departures can be a great way of checking in and seeing what's going on with them. The next level of departure is going to be mildly increasing the length, but still staying within view of the house so that if your dog has some challenges, you can go back in. And I've just listed a few ideas of things that you might want to do. I would think about this as maybe a 15-minute departure, something that is very brief and that you will easily be able to get back to the house in case your dog has some challenges. And then finally, we're going to start moving into those longer departures where you're not on the property anymore. I would usually go somewhere for 20 minutes or less for my first departure off the property, or without being able to get back to the property within a minute or two, and then build from that to a slightly longer departure of maybe up to an hour. And again, those are both going to be when you're off the property. And Lori, I think you can go through this next slide.
So as far as, skip it, got it.
Were you going to ask a question?
No, I wasn't. You're perfect. Keep going.
So what I want you to do is create predictable departures at times when you're naturally going to be leaving the home, building towards the amount of time that you ultimately will be gone. So I increase duration gradually, but I only do so when I see evidence that my dog is calm, resting, or playing while I'm gone. I wouldn't increase the duration if my dog was panting, whining, pacing, checking out the windows. Those would all be signs that I need to slow down. And for one client, that meant they literally walked to the kitchen and made a cup of tea and came back. That was as much as their dog could handle when they started, but it did work. And we're done. Wow, we made it in our half an hour time frame.
We did. I'm shocked.
I am too. So the third part is going to be problem solving, which we hope to get on the books within the next couple of weeks based on questions and feedback we get here. Yeah, Laura, do you have anything to add right now?
I don't, other than to say if people are having challenges with dogs that are in foster or even in adoptive homes, please reach out to Spencer Dog. We are here to help you. We have trainers on standby waiting for applications to come through, and we would love to be able to help more dogs and to help dogs get into those forever homes and be really successful there. As far as tracking problems, as Cheryl said, recording your dog when you're gone. So one of the easiest ways to do it, if you have a computer with a camera and a cell phone, you can set the computer up and then you can watch the dog on your phone or vice versa, so that when you walk out of the house, you can actually be watching their body language. And if you do see distress signals like Cheryl mentioned, panting, pacing, whining, going to the doorway that you went out of, digging, eliminating, those are all clues that you need to get back home and that you might need more help. And we will address that in part 3, the problem solving section that we will hopefully put on in a couple weeks.
Okay, I think we're ready to go to the Q&A portion. So if people have questions they'd like to post, please do so. I know we've got Randy over at your house keeping track of that, but I also am having some trouble seeing some of the earlier comments that people wrote. I know somebody asked about training dogs to go in kennels, and if you like, I could add a link for that video I was describing, and then I have a couple of other questions. So if you want to go ahead and bring us, should we put our cameras back on?
I think we can absolutely turn our cameras back on, and it looks like my person is here with my questions. So
And while you're getting those questions, I want to say hi to Teresa and Susan, because we didn't get to greet them earlier.
Okay. So we do have the question from Liz about, can you retrain your dog to go into a crate after years of not using a crate?
Are you asking me to answer that?
Well, if you want to start, I can certainly follow up.
You know, what I did, I probably made it a lot more complicated than I need to, but I will share that video if it's helpful to people. I actually did something very similar to the relaxation station, where every time my dog looked at, moved towards, sniffed the kennel, treats would randomly happen inside of it until my dog was eventually walking into the kennel and lying down. Once he did that, I just started dropping treats in the kennel whenever he went in the kennel. So that worked really well for me. So I built duration once he was voluntarily going into the kennel on his own. I never cued him to do it. I waited until he did it on his own. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I think I do a very similar thing. You know, one thing Cheryl and I should probably both mention is we both are certified clicker trainers. And so both of us do tend to use that marker, that clicker. And so, you know, a lot of times I will just take the top off of a crate if it is one of those plastic crates. We have both types in our house and have found some dogs prefer plastic, some prefer wire. So we kind of let them choose where they're comfortable. But I'll do things like take the top off, and then anytime I see them laying in that bottom part, going ahead and treating that, clicking and treating them for any interaction with the crate, kind of that similar way that Cheryl was talking about, introducing that relaxation station. Okay.
Before
and
we
Cheryl,
go to the next question, I want to mention that brilliant idea you have of putting a funnel on the crate, hanging a large like a feed store funnel on the crate to create a target for family members so that they're not interrupting the dog every time they drop a treat in there, and the dogs, I think it just makes it motivating for everybody. That's all.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun game to see who can hit the funnel in the living room, to see, you know, who can get the treat into the funnel that drops that treat into the dog's crate. Cheryl, I do think it would be great to post that video you did with Owen of crate training. I think it's really good to show people how small those steps can be, because the smaller the steps, the easier it is for the dog to be successful and earn reinforcement.
I'm going to try to multitask and do that right now.
All right, so it looks like we have another question here from Susan. It says, we crate our dogs. 4 are good, but our newest tries to dig out of the crate when you first put him in. I believe he calms down once we're gone, as he's always down and resting when I come home. How can I get him to be okay to bed, and I am able to come home at lunch, and they do not sleep in their kennels? So Susan, I think probably watching that video that Cheryl created, so you may want to leave the door open a little bit longer, and you may want to be really reinforcing him when he's laying down and being calm, and not providing a lot of attention when he's doing that little bit of digging. A great way to see if he really is resting, rather than just exhausting himself. So some dogs with separation anxiety will dig and exhaust themselves, and then when you come home, it looks like they're calm. I can give an example of this with one of my own dogs. So I didn't believe one of my own dogs had separation anxiety at first, and I was challenged by a veterinary behaviorist to actually record my dog. And what I saw is that she was sitting in that crate panting in kind of a panicked state all day long. And so taping your dog, recording your dog when you're not at home to see what they're actually doing rather than looking for signs of distress is a really important thing to do. So setting that camera up and being able to watch them, because that's going to cue you into, are they distressed? And then you can start doing some detective work and going, is this because they're confined and they would be okay in a larger space not being so confined? Or is this truly separation anxiety and we need to be seeking help from a professional and may need to consider the use of some medications or supplements to help them with this until we can complete this training? So Susan, we will definitely post that video so you can watch. And obviously if there's more questions, about creating that arise because of that, we can always do a webinar on how to train your dog. We have another question from Anne. Hi, Anne. We're glad you joined us. Her question is, what is the best starting point for a Velcro dog? The relaxation station, is that the first step? So Cheryl, I don't know if you want to go ahead or if you're still posting. I can certainly answer. Just let me know.
You can go ahead and respond,
Okay.
but I am not posting. I'm trying to monitor it a little bit, but go ahead and you
Okay.
start.
So, I mean, Velcro dogs are typically dogs that do have some level of separation anxiety, and separation anxiety is different than what we're talking about in this particular webinar. Separation anxiety is dogs that experience true panic and distress when they are physically separated from their owner. I do have 2 of these dogs in my house, and as far as my Velcro dogs go, I started reinforcing them for just being relaxed an inch or 2 away from me. So if I saw that they were laying on the sofa by me and they weren't physically touching me, I would set that piece of kibble down in front of them. And then I would start reinforcing them for being further and further away from me. The other piece that has been very important with my dogs is the use of behavioral medications, because their anxiety and panic was so severe that they were running the risk of injuring themselves when we were away, and those medications have really helped them to be more comfortable and relaxed when we aren't present in the home. And so if you are living with a dog that may have true separation anxiety, and only your veterinarian or a veterinarian that is versed in behavior can make that diagnosis, and typically that diagnosis does require video of your dog when you're away from them. If you have that diagnosis, I would say reaching out to somebody who can help you with some medications as well as behavior modification is going to be really important. So Cheryl, do you have anything to add about Velcro dogs?
I will just add one more piece because this is something that I've actually talked to Ann about before, and it's a challenge. When you have that dog that's a Velcro dog and you begin working with the relaxation station, you may get a dog that starts staring at you a lot and looking at you a lot for when am I getting the next treat. And so you may have to modify your expectations to the dog turns its head away or drops its head down so that you're not only giving your dog treats when they look at you during that process of relaxation. Does that sound clear?
Yeah, it does to me.
If it doesn't to anybody else, just post it and we will revisit it.
For sure. And we can certainly do, presentations on separation anxiety, all of those sorts of things, so that you have a more clear understanding of what is separation anxiety, how is it defined, how can I tell if my dog truly has that? And that may be things that we go more into detail in our problem solving presentation in about 2 to 3 weeks after you guys have had some time to start trying. We'll know what hiccups people are running into, and then it will make that presentation more useful for those who are working on this with their dogs. So I don't have any more questions in the chat that I can see, and Randy doesn't have any more that he has written down. He's now handed me his computer, so
I think
who knows what kind of trouble we're in if I'm running 2 computers.
Well, I'm just going to be looking away more. I think we may have addressed this, but this was Jen who adopted a dog from Carver Scott, and she said not sure at all where to start getting her used to being home alone. So I'm hoping that what we've been talking about has helped, but if you have specific questions that have arisen during our conversation, by all means, let us know what that is, and we will see if we can answer that better for you. And then, I apologize because I've been multitasking, I haven't always been listening. We crate our dogs for a good, better, newest tries to dig out. Yep. Did you get that one? Okay.
I did. Yep, we did handle that. So it looks like Anne said that was helpful. She thinks distinguishing separation anxiety from dogs that are just not used to or good at being alone is a useful thing to do. And that's absolutely true. If you are concerned that your dog has separation anxiety, again, record them and get that video over to somebody who knows behavior. What you're looking for is, are there signs of distress? So panting, pacing, barking, elimination, so urinating, defecating, destructive behaviors focused on exit, so doorways, windows, those sorts of things. Those are all signs that a dog may be experiencing true separation anxiety, and that is a condition that oftentimes does need some medications to help stop those panic attacks that are going on in those patients. So I don't...
I just wanted to thank
go ahead.
Amanda for joining us and for her kind comments. So yeah, I don't see anything else either.
I do not see anything else either. So we said we would be here till 2, so we will definitely hang out until 2. It looks like we have about 6 minutes left. And so if anybody does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments section. We are here to answer them. And if you would like presentations for your rescue group and you have topics that you're interested in, please reach out to us, post those in the comments section, send us private messages, email us through our website, or if you have dogs that you think need a trainer and you're wondering how to go about that, all you have to do is fill out a Spencer Scholarship application. Our trainers are paid by SpencerGroup, so there's no cost to you, and we will go ahead and start working with your group.
And if anybody needs us to, we can re-enter our website address so that they know it. But again, the SpencerGroup is for dogs that are currently in rescue. We are occasionally consulting with veterinarians as well. So if your dog may need some veterinary, if there's a reasonable expectation that there is an anxiety-based behavior, we may also pay for a vet visit. So, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really nice. And I think we can stop the recording and just hang out for those last 5 or 6 minutes.
I will do that. 1 second. Thanks for reminding me to do that. Okay, so we are no longer recording, but we are still live on Facebook.
Wrapping up. And I see that Evan and Maddie's adopter showed up too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I loved seeing Evan and Maddie during Bark Madness. They were so cute.
They always surprised me. Thank you, Lorna and Heather and Julie. And thank you to Rough Start for co-hosting, actually.
Yeah, we love. I'm just trying to love when rescues give us ideas. So thank you, Rough Start, for bringing this to our attention. We're happy to help.
Yeah, and if people are still online and they have other things they think we should be talking about, by all means, throw those in the comments too. I feel like we have some. I'm trying to think if there's any other things that we haven't talked about that we might want to explore.
Thanks for putting that. I don't know.
I can't think of any. I mean, obviously, what I find, here's what I would say, is what I find is that this is our plan, and things don't always go according to plan. And so we start with this plan with the understanding that things may take a turn and you might learn things that you didn't expect. And so be prepared to revise this approach as you need to for your house. This is a general approach, but it does oftentimes need to be individualized. I would say that.
Yeah, I think every training plan I ever write, I think people are always, oh, you're a professional trainer, so you must easily understand this, and you're a veterinarian to boot, so it might be really easy for you. But the reality for me is I find every plan I write down it's always 10 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, going, oh, I need to reassess there. That wasn't a good choice. And so I think being able to assess how your dog is doing and also being able to adjust and not be stuck in these fixed ideas is really important. It does look like we got another question here from, I'm sorry, I don't know if your name is Iola or Lola. I apologize if it, if they're both L's or an I and then an L, I'm not sure just based on the font. But she asks, what about a dog that is a fussy eater? So, do you want to take that one, reinforcing a dog that is a fussy eater?
Well, I think it kind of depends on the environment. So if we're talking about training a dog to go into a crate, I would probably look a little bit more deeply at what we might explore for treats. Do we want to look at things that might be a little sweet? Or what we discovered in our recent Bark Madness treat tournament is that dogs like weird things. So one of the treats that was really popular for the dogs in the treat tournament was Toast. So in any event, SpencerGroup has a list of, I think, 32 different treat ideas that I would consider starting with, but I would recommend doing a treat tournament to figure out what my dog prefers and use that as I need to for training for crates. But for other enrichment, there's no reason you need to use food. You can also use toys. You can also use squeaky tennis balls. You can also use items that they can chew and not ingest when you're gone. So I think that what I'm going to use for training is going to depend on the environment. Sometimes I'll also try to just up the value of things by, if they like their kibble, maybe throw in some turkey to just absorb into the kibble to add a little value to that, which is maybe not an answer, but that's where I would start.
From my perspective, if the dog is always a fussy eater, that's something that I would be looking for a medical cause for. So there are a lot of dogs that have underlying gastrointestinal issues. And sometimes the only thing that we're seeing is them present as not really wanting to eat. Maybe they don't have any vomiting or diarrhea, but it could be that they need some probiotics. It could be that they have some reflux. It could be that they have a food sensitivity. And so talking to your veterinarian about that. The other thing that's also very common is if dogs have anxiety, the adrenaline that kicks in from anxiety actually shunts the blood flow away from the stomach. And so the dog's drive to eat has gone down. And so if that is the case, anxiety medications sometimes can improve appetite. So there are nausea medications that can help with eating. There are also anxiety medications that can help with eating. If I just think my treats are not high enough value, sometimes I will use a big syringe from like Farm and Fleet, or I think in Minneapolis it's called Fleet Farm. I'll get a big syringe and I'll puree some peanut butter mixed with pumpkin, or I'll puree some canned dog food and I'll start squirting that onto a licky mat. And sometimes that higher value stuff will get that dog eating.
I'm going to give you a heads up. My battery I didn't know, unplugged. So if I go away, that's what happened. Okay.
Okay. I mean, we're after 2 anyway, but we have had a couple questions. Somebody said, could we please do a talk on people coming back into the house? So stranger danger. And I think we could absolutely plan on that one. So we'll start working on that one and try to get that on the books. Somebody else said, I accidentally discovered my pup's highest value treat is jelly beans, which, it's funny, they have a different sense of taste. I'm starting to study Chinese food therapy, and it's interesting when you figure out what their constitution is and you start seeing the things that they're drawn to, it actually fits. So it's really interesting. I can't say it's had any therapeutic value so far because I'm only just starting, but there are certainly dogs that fall into the constitution that they want sweet things. And so sometimes trying to find those sweet things, applesauce is a great thing to use as a reinforcer. We have somebody who said, I have a question. When using destruction boxes, how do you prevent them from eating the cardboard? So that's one of the things you have to think about. And if you're leaving your dog with something that they ingest, certainly there are some risks there. paper is a lower risk than some of the other things, but you know, you want to imagine how much of it are they going to ingest and how much can you leave with them. Obviously, if they're dogs that eat everything, then you probably don't want to leave those items with them, and you only want to use those things when they're supervised. Do you have any comments about that, Cheryl?
The only comment I have is really not a direct answer to that question. It's, you and I have talked a lot about the difference between a dog that shreds things and a dog that ingests things. And so when I think about the types of things I leave out, if I have a shredder, then those boxes are great. If I have an ingester, I might want to choose something that they're going to digest a little bit easier or leave smaller quantities instead of going to the heavy duty cardboard. I might work more with paper. And you're the veterinarian, so I would defer to you every time on that. So
Yeah.
I think we've answered all their questions. Does it look
I
like
do think we have answered all the questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. I do want to say thank you to everybody who attended. This has been really fun. Hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, we can start doing some of these things in person and online. But for now, we're happy that we can at least get this information out through an online platform. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Cheryl?
I would say the only thing is, will they be able, I know I've already asked this question, will they be able to access this video in an ongoing way through Facebook, or should we be providing the link for our YouTube?
So they will be able to access it here on Facebook, just like the one from Bark Madness. It will be here on our Facebook page, so you can go to the videos tab, or it should be right on our newsfeed for a while. And then we will also share it to our website through our YouTube channel, and that's where you can find any of our videos that we have created. They are available on our YouTube channel, which is linked to our website.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I, again, am so grateful to all of you who joined us, and to the rescues who engaged and shared, and to Rough Start for recommending that we create this video. So thank you all. It's been great.
Right. Have a good Sunday. We will see you guys soon.